There are a million prompt templates out there, but if you don't know what you're trying to get, there's no template that's going to save you. The truth? Prompt engineering is a distraction. Framing is the real power skill. Welcome to Process of Elimination. I'm Justin L. Brown.
I'm Ryan Edwards.
And today we're breaking down why good prompts don't start with keywords or bullet points, they start with perspective. So Ryan, why is it that prompt engineering caught on so hard, but the results kind of fizzled out?
I mean, prompt engineering is an easy way into using AI. And AI is the AI interface is completely set up to encourage it. The AI interface is an input field, just like Google input field. And here's kind of a funny little crossover. What was the other biggest disruptive force in the digital world? It was the invent of Google and Googling. And what was Google's interface when it got introduced to the world? A simple input field. Was ChatGPT's interface a simple input field?
Yeah.
Thus proving the power of the input field.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
That was a tangent. We can make that short.
We could. But going off, you're still rolling with the tangent. Why is it that, because people saw those input fields, and like when Google first started off, you wanted to find new websites or you wanted to find new things. You had that simple space where then as soon as you figured out how to search, Google became more relevant. Now, prompt engineering is that new search field partner, but it's not actually helping get to the bigger question.
100%. Prompt engineering is accessible. I can do prompt engineering. You can write prompts. Anybody can write prompts in any language, and you don't have to follow rules. You don't have to follow coding rules. You don't have to follow syntaxes. You can just do what you're talking about. So prompt engineering evolved. If I write this prompt in this way, following these formats, and there's formats for prompt engineering, I'll get these types of results. And it's not that prompt engineering is bad. Prompt engineering, outside of the context of a framework, gives you erratic results. And if you're in a business, you don't want erratic results. You want results that you can rely on. You want results that can be duplicated, replicated, or used over and over again to extend yourself. You don't want a wild card of this can happen anytime. Part of the reason why that happened is because, all AI platforms, Anthropic, Claude, ChatGPT, they're building in memories to make them more useful. So every person who uses it gets a different result. And then it's also, generative, ChatGPT is not AI, it's generative AI. And most people lose context of that. Generative AI means every time that you ask it, it generates a new answer. Mm-hmm. So that's why we say prompt engineering is dead. It doesn't give you the outputs that you can rely on. But when you use it in a framework, when you break it down to multiple steps, as we've talked about before, and give it strict context, then you can prompt within those contexts and get results that make sense, that can be repeated. So I can be using a strict context of AI, and I can be asking it, for example, we do a lot of research. I can be doing a research context of AI around in the camera field, around how to use how to do different settings for cameras.
Yeah.
And I can get the results that I want in that context, and you can use the same context, the same framework, and get the results that you need, which are different, but they're reliable. If we just used an open AI, what people are seeing is, well, ChatGPT, I used a prompt and it told me to do it this way, and you're like, it told me to do it this way. Well, guess what? They both conflict with each other.
Going back to your Google analogy, when you type in if you could type in that same prompt, it's going to give you basically the same results because it's pulling the same exact information. But you made a great point that I want to go back to, which is that ChatGPT, Claude, a lot of these Gemini are generative AI, so it's creating a new response every time. So even if your prompt is pretty close to ironclad. You're not going to get the exact same result every time without adding the proper amount of context.
And it's not just the result. I get so frustrated. The other day, I got so frustrated because I just used ChatGPT in something simple, and I had a format that I wanted it out in, and I had it in my prompt, and I did the day before. It worked out great. The next day, no matter how hard I tried, I spent a half an hour. It would not give me that format.
That's the frustration, and that's why you want to make sure that you actually give context. And even you trying it and going in the next day and it's not giving you the same results is it could make anyone frustrated. It could make anyone go back to, you know what, this AI thing isn't necessarily helping me because I can't rely on it. But starting with prompt-based messages aren't going to get you the results.
Right. And what I ended up doing, and this goes to what we talked about in the last episode, I ended up doing what I knew I should have done to start because I wanted a format.
What should you have done?
I created a custom GPT.
Yes.
And then I redid the work I did the day before and that day to make sure it all matched up and worked because I needed the same formats, I needed the same context and everything. And I knew from the get-go I probably should make a custom GPT, tried to cut some corners. I ended up wasting a lot of time.
Yeah. This isn't actually on my list of questions, but it brings up another question for me. When it comes to the time it takes to make a really good prompt versus the time it takes to make a decent GPT, have you found that it's like a 2-to-1 scale? Like one takes 15, 20 minutes, while this other one takes 25 to 45 minutes? What does that time scale look like for you?
If you're making a really, really strong, in-depth prompt, it's almost the exact same time to make a GPT.
Got it. So actually, we should always be looking, if it's that important, I find that having a custom GPT to base things off of, and then maybe having some prompts that won't fill up the 5 fields that, you could, like the little menu tab, having those to go along with that is much more helpful than just having a really good prompt.
Right. My rule of thumb is quite simply this. If it's something you're going to use once, maybe once every 6 months, or it's just for fun, or it's just to find some more information about something, prompt engineer away. If it's something that you are going to use over and over again, particularly in your business, you want other people to use it also, you want other people to get similar results so you can work together on it, create a workflow around it, create a GPT, use other elements, and create the structure needed around it so it can be shared and repeated and reliable. The worst thing, I saw this once and it was so there was a meeting. I was part of a meeting and a person had created an elaborate prompt. And they got some answers that were great, but they were shocking. And they went to show it in a big meeting. And the person is just like, that's just incredible. I'm not denying it, but that's just insane. I want to see it for myself. How can I do it? And the guy's like, well, here's the prompt that I used. And he handed it to the person running the meeting. The person put in the GPT. They got a radically different answer. And guess what? That person lost the contract.
So why do these companies buy prompt packs in the first place? Thinking, if that's the case, like how have they been sold this idea that they need to buy these prompt packs?
Well, for a couple of reasons. One, in the early days of generative AI, that was all you had. And it was use AI with 2 grains of salt. Find the information that you get and then double, triple check it. So prompt packs worked out great. Now they're around because prompt packs are they're legacy. They're out there all over the place. That is so hard to say 3 times fast.
It is.
A prompt pack. They're everywhere and you can get them for really cheap. They're accessible. They're easy to use. All that they are is fill in some blanks. It's like It's not prompt engineering. It's prompting ad libs. Fill in some blanks and prompt away. And here's the thing: in some circumstances, they're great. If I'm just doing some basic market research and just are curious to understand, and I'm not going to do some serious strategy, that's all I really need, just to understand things. But the minute that you start going into strategy, the minute you start relying on it for your business practices, the minute that you make it part of a workflow, if you're just relying on prompt engineering and getting radically different answers across different people because the context changed and the context is loose, then that starts a problem.
Yeah. I'm imagining that person that you just mentioned that made this elaborate prompt and he would get this result, and then he was so confident in it that he handed his prompt to the person in the meeting to use in their open GPT that's basically not necessarily trained on what they're doing, but it's outside of his own system. I'm almost curious as to what makes him, which I'm sure he's a very smart person, think that he's going to get the same result. Like, it sounds almost counterintuitive. Like, of course, it's supposed that prompt should go to a custom GPT or should be constrained within some sort of structure. Why is it why do you think that person was so confident that that prompt was going to work on a machine that wasn't his own?
Because there was one word in what you just said that hits the nail on the head: train. When I'm using ChatGPT, you're using ChatGPT, and Francis, our voice of God over here, is using GPT.
Yes, he is.
Every time we use it, we're training it, and they have memories. They're working memory into it more and more, so we're training it more and more, and that's changing the context.
Yeah.
My context of use is very different than your context of use, so it's learning and it's trying to give answers that fit my context of use, which can cause not hallucinations, but answers that are half right. Why we say create a GPT or use a multi-layered program or create the context around it is it sets the context for every person to use it to be the same. So the GPT knows, hey, Ryan is really into the Muppets and he does a lot of Muppet searches. So we're going to give him Muppet style answers. And you're really into Rick and Morty. So
Yeah.
you're going to give Rick and Morty style answer.
Yes.
It changes the context.
Yeah.
And so if we use a GPT or a multi-layer program or MPC or any of the ways that you can create your custom elements for it, it creates the same context for everyone else. And it's trained on the same context.
Yeah. You know, as you're saying this, it actually makes me think of my wife for our wedding. First, my background has been in music. Like, I started off in music. That was my thing. And then her background was more fitness and communications, and she's been on that side. But I made us, for the lead up to our wedding, I made us a custom GPT with our horoscopes in there, with all of the little nuanced things that we kind of share together. And she ended up using this GPT that I made to make our playlist for the wedding, a 3-hour playlist. It is so good. I'm going to ask her permission, but I might actually share it with the audience. It's so good. And going back to why it was so good for us is because I feel like we had something that we shared together, like that shared structure that she was then able to go into and then build off of a few songs and then get more and more and more obscure. So when the day actually came, I didn't even hear the playlist. I'm just listening to this thing like, oh my goodness, how have I never heard this song before? And if she tried to do that by prompt engineering or just by using just regular OpenAI, it'd have probably went way left or way right. She'd have probably got frustrated, like I would have gotten frustrated with it. But the results of it, because it's so subjective, music is about the most subjective thing that you can ask for, was insanely spot on because we built a GPT together. We made sure all the information was properly in there that represented both of us. And the results of that was one of the best playlists that I have ever heard. And maybe you guys can be the judge of that.
And I have to admit, I heard a bit of it on your wedding video.
Yeah.
It was a really good playlist.
It's so good.
It's really good.
It's so good. Everybody thinks I did it. I had nothing to do with it. But that's a great point that you just made, that it doesn't, like, prompt engineering without the structure isn't very helpful when it comes to anything outside of your own machine.
I'll give you one other fun context story.
Tell me.
I'm a Star Wars nerd.
Okay.
You know, I'm doing my prompts and, you know, talking to ChatGPT and such, and I'll do things like, I don't like this. You're going a little too far to the dark side. Or I'll say things like to it sometimes like, you're the only hope, Obi-Wan. Help me with this problem.
Yeah.
Just because I'm a Star Wars nerd.
Yeah.
So my GPT has started to talk to me as if it was a Jedi.
Oh, that is so good. Because I know that it's speaking to you, and all the GPTs that are being trained and that you interact with, their whole goal, they're basically golden retrievers. All they want to do is make you happy. And whatever it can take to make you happy, whether it's right or wrong is subjective, but if it can make you happy, that's the goal of the GPT. So by you training it to speak to you in that way I can see how that can be extremely helpful. But if you take a prompt that you made in that style and then give it to me, I'm probably not going to get the same results you're getting.
No, and you hit on another complete side topic, but something that's a big conversation right now, which is GPTs, both Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, you name it. They have a very big problem with confirmation bias. They will give answers to make you think it's valuable. Unless you built it into your GPT, and this is a problem with prompt engineering, unless you specifically built into it that you want answers that are not biased or not contrary, it is built to give you that confirmation bias. And that's also one of the reasons why I like to use specific instances and workflows, be it a GPT or a multi-layered step, because all I have to do is build it into it once. Make sure that you're not using confirmation bias. Make sure that you're giving me the pros and the cons. Make sure that you're taking a position that is advocating for it and is absolutely against it, and so I can make a decision. Just in straight prompt engineering, it's so easy to lose that and go down a rabbit hole of confirmation bias.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And with the custom GPTs, I look at it as you were saying this, I was thinking it's almost like you're taking these master prompts and basically going to the public, going and doing man on the street interviews. You really don't know what type of answers you're going to get if you just ask random people on the street. Whereas a custom GPT is that friend that you have that you might not talk to that friend about sports, but that friend knows a ton about your research on biology, or for me, my research on the work that I'm doing in production and the specific flows that it needs to go through to make sure that it's following AICP guidelines or things like that. It's going to be a lot more useful when you set your GPTs up that way. So I feel like we're killing prompt engineering.
I mean, that's the truth, and you know what they say. The truth will set you free, but first, it'll piss you off.
Hey, that was Pharrell, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was. Oh man, that Pharrell album is one of my favorite albums. That's the Lemon album, right?
Yeah, and side note, have you checked out Pharrell's Lego series?
No, but I need to.
Oh, it's
You told
good.
me this before. I
Yeah.
really need to go back. So let's go into our ideology drop, which is a 3-part framing stack, which is context, constraint, and calibration. So we start with context, which is why I feel like, and you confirmed that making all of these prompts and prompt packs and all of that is not as helpful. I think they have its place, but without context, you're going to get vastly different results. Then we're going to go into constraints, which is your word count, your tone rules, specific format, which is extremely important for anything you do with enterprises or business level. Like you want to have all of those set, or you're just going to end up with a bunch of M dashes and sentences that are just extra, adding all these extra fluff that's not necessary. And then from there, we go into calibration, which is why it's using certain phrases, giving it better examples, and asking to try it again or do something differently. So let's start with context. We did talk a lot about context, but let's hone it into why context is our first step. And this is basically why prompt engineering is kind of dead.
Yeah. Context is the Johnny Cash of the digital world.
Oh, you got to give us a full explanation on that.
It's simple. Context is king.
Okay. Okay. And we still don't know why that relates to Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash is the king.
Oh, okay. We didn't know Johnny Cash was the king.
Johnny Cash is king.
I thought Michael Jackson was the king. There's a small subsect of people that think that Elvis is the king. So,
Look, as we said before, the truth will set you free.
yes, but first it'll piss you off.
Yes.
Okay.
Have you not been to a barber shop when you say Cash? When you see the sign with Johnny Cash, Cash is king.
You know that is that really where that came from?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to fact check that. But for now, I believe you.
But
Okay.
in all seriousness, it's all about the context. And the context allows you to be repeatable and allows people in different teams to work together and be able to check each other and get similar results. And they know they're working in the same ballpark. Context are the goals you're working for. Context are the descriptions around the products, around your audiences, stuff like that. That creates the context that you need to be working within. If not, consider ChatGPT is not like an intern. If not, ChatGPT is like a golden retriever that's chasing every squirrel. You have to give it the context to stay within the yard.
Yes. Context is definitely like the golden retriever. I love that because I have a cat and boy, he does what he wants. And that is probably how OpenAI is. But yeah, he does what he wants. We love him though.
Wait, you're a cat person?
Oh, I'm totally a cat person. I'm not walking a dog twice a day.
Wait, so you walk your cat?
No.
You're one of those cat walkers?
No. We have a stroller, but that's for rare occasions when it's really nice out and we want to take him out. We're not going to judge us, okay? I am a recent cat dad, so.
I am not judging you walking down the street with your cat in a stroller. Nope, not
Yeah,
judging that
don't
at all.
judge. Don't judge. This is where we're going to go into constraints, okay? Like word counts and tone rules and why that's important.
Like the constraint of putting your cat in the constraint of the stroller.
Yes. Yes. So the cat doesn't get out the bag.
So, I mean, constraints are again, they're important because the example I gave before, formatting, repeating tasks, that not only is that saving you time by having the constraints in there, so it gives you the outputs in the way that you need them, but it saves you time, but it also allows you to to increase the context by having them in the right fields, in the right order, and the right way you need to see them. And it allows the outputs to be shared. Imagine you're in a company, and imagine you're giving something to your VP, and 1 week you're giving him a report that is bulletless. The next week you're giving him a report that is in a Excel sheet that's structured with table headers. And then the next week you're giving him a report that is all in a written out prose format. It's the same information, but they're going to look at you and they're going to be like, I can't use this. How do I compare week over week? I don't even know this is the same stuff.
Yeah.
That matters as much as the content itself.
Absolutely. I really resonate with that, because when I do feel like I have a great prompt that I just put directly into my GPT, I'm always having to say, no, M-dash. I'm always saying, please use this tone. And I'm like, please don't kiss my butt.
Yeah.
Or be concise. It's extremely useful to put that into the custom GPT, so that way you don't have to keep repeating what the constraints are over and over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, put into the custom GPT in the whatever multi-layered format you're using in your MCP, just build it in when you're making that workflow in that single element.
So you've added your context, you put in your constraints, and just like we've been talking about the entire time, just because you did it the one time doesn't mean you shouldn't be looking back at the results and refining it. So let's talk about calibration.
Yeah. All I have to say about that is we like to calibrate once a month.
Yeah.
Because things are changing that much. And it's not necessarily about our needs always, although our needs change too, but it's about the platforms are changing so much. New models are coming out, changes are happening to APIs that we have to go in and recalibrate. Plus, we're growing. Our needs change. The instructions and the context that I gave 6 months ago now might be too narrow and limiting. I need to broaden it slightly. So you have to recalibrate.
When I'm using my own custom GPT, and, ChatGPT has its own memory. So say I am in a project where I'm just feeding it all this information, not even feeding it, I'm asking it to do a ton of tasks, 50 tasks over the past week. So that ends up being 200 tasks over the past month. Does it learn from those tasks and then try to appease based on those tasks that I've asked it to do? And that's why I need to go in and recalibrate it? Or is it basically going to give me about the same results when it comes to a custom GPT? I'm not talking about just starting a fresh, like, open source tab. I'm talking about using a specific GPT that was made, and then I use it for a project and I'm deep into it. I've used the hell out of it. But then I'm about to start a new task. Does that new task get affected by the 200 past tasks that I asked for to do?
Within that GPT, yes, it can.
Okay.
Now, there's two things. I say it can, not always, because two things, there's several factors at play. I upload a lot to my GPTs, lots of documents, and the more you upload to it, you'll start getting these messages. We're flushing the cache, or we're flushing the memory. GPT tries to, and it has a certain amount of long memory about what you've done, but particularly in documents you upload, it'll flush that every once in a while. I will also go in and I'll ask it to flush the memory sometimes when I see that happening. And you'll start having little conflicts within a GPT of where you'll see where it'll try to sometimes go outside of the context and the parameters you've given to it, for example, the custom GPT. And I'll have to say to it, please give me the instructions again. Follow the instructions of the GPT.
So the tricky thing about AI is it's fallible. It's not consistent. It's not the same for everybody, which is why prompt engineering isn't necessarily the easiest way to get or a good way to get this repeatable result. So the move for this week is, instead of trying to use a master prompt, try a custom GPT. And using that custom GPT for whatever that master prompt would be is going to get you a lot more consistent results. And if you want to look at this on an enterprise level, that is what Camino 5 is going to be able to help out with. They're going to be able to come in, help you build custom GPTs, custom workflows that is going to be able to be consistent across the board, and it's going to help you maintain that consistency across the board. Next time, build once, use forever. The power of modular thinking with AI workflows. We're getting into the reusable intelligence and how to turn every smart output into a long-term asset. Thank you again for watching Process of Elimination.